Good evening. I'm John Wensky, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee, and welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Selco Channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Shrewsbury Media Connection and Liz Poplowski for their assistance with this broadcast. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting on Wednesday, December 18th. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we would like to honor two longtime former Shrewsbury educators who sadly passed away over the last few weeks. Betty Lou Lambert served 28 years as a kindergarten teacher in Shrewsbury, retiring in 2006. Mrs. Lambert was a dedicated Shrewsbury educator who touched the lives of hundreds of her students by creating a positive learning environment for all who were fortunate to experience her love and guidance in the early years of their education. Also, on a personal note, my mom spent 18 years in her classroom as a teacher's aide as well, so very close to the family. We honor Marie Cadigan, who served our district for 35 years, primarily as a special educator at Shrewsbury High School, and then as an out-of-district special education coordinator for the district. Marie was a Shrewsbury native who was known for her caring and no-nonsense approach with her students and her wry sense of humor. On behalf of Shrewsbury Public Schools and the school committee, we convey our sincere condolences to Betty Lou's and Marie's family, friends, and former colleagues. As longtime educators, they both had a significant positive impact on our school district and our community. Please join us in a moment of silence in honor of their lives. Thank you so much. First item on our agenda is public participation. Tonight, no one has requested to speak at public participation, but it is available to any and all residents that wish to address the committee regarding concerns pertaining to policy, budget, and the performance of the superintendent. In the future, if anybody wishes to speak at public participation, they should contact the chairperson prior to the next scheduled meeting. Next item on our agenda is chairperson and members' reports. Colleagues, anything to report?
No.
Okay. And then that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is superintendent's report. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Wensky, and I appreciate you honoring Betty Lambert and Marie Cadigan, two educators who had positive impact on hundreds and hundreds of students over their career, and it's meaningful to honor them that way, so thank you. I also want to pass along some good news information on behalf of Ms. Clowder. That it was a very positive week in the curriculum and instruction domain. First off, the National Conference for Teachers of English, the NCTE, was recently held in Boston. And when we have a national conference like that that's close by, we try to endeavor to send multiple people from the district to it. But this year we also had two educators who actually presented. First, Leslie Burnap, who's a longtime teacher at Coolidge School, currently teaches second grade. She chaired a session entitled Nature-Themed Mentor Text to Fuel K-2 Research, Writing, and Action. And then a newer teacher, a brand new teacher to us this year, a veteran teacher who came from another district, teaches second grade at Beale School, Andrew Hackett, who also is an author of children's books, and he presented on several panels with other children's book authors on the power of picture books to elicit empathy and inspire hope. So we're pleased that Ms. Burnap and Mr. Hackett were able to present. 18 teacher representatives from all three of our grade spans also attended, each of whom is committed to bring back to their colleagues the benefit of what they learned at this national conference. So thank you to them. I also want to share the good news that we have two educators who earned a very special award. Lisa Papazian and Becky Dunphy are the instructional coaches and curriculum coordinators at Beale School, longtime educators in our district and curriculum leaders. They were given an award by the 1-8 Foundation and ST Math. And those of you who have younger children in the district know that ST Math is an interactive math program that features a cartoon penguin by the name of Gigi that the students are appreciative of. It's a puzzle-based math critical thinking system that we've done a lot of work with. And Ms. Papazian and Ms. Dunphy were recognized recently at a regional conference for their innovative work in aligning the use of ST Math to core instruction, modeling puzzle talks, analyzing data with teachers in their grade level teams, numerous presentations they've made to other districts about the work that we've done, the creation at Beal of an ST Math Genius Bar, that's student staff, and most importantly, the results for students mathematically within the program. And there was a quote from the presentation that in the first year of the grant, because there's a grant that Ms. Clowder has applied for, we've received for our elementary schools to implement this program, Beal School as a whole reached 100% progress, and then over 65% of the Beal School student population reached 80%, which is an important benchmark of all the available math puzzle content for that year. Lisa Papazian and Becky Dunphy work hard to challenge even early finishers and continually promote equity and ensure access for all, including making several presentations at regional meetings. Now, this is an award unlike any other I've seen because the name of this award is the Golden Skateboard Award, which is connected to that math program. It's signed by the folks from the 1-8 Foundation and ST Math. It's given me a little bit of PTSD because I chipped my brand new front teeth in 4th grade on a skateboard that was green, not golden, but very much this size. But it was really a terrific recognition for two outstanding educational leaders in Ms. Papazian and Ms. Dunphy, and we congratulate them and appreciate all the work they've done to go above and beyond to be leaders within the profession in the region when it comes to the implementation of ST Math. So some good news stories to share, and that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Great, thank you so much. All right, the next item on our agenda is a time schedule appointment. It is the acceptance of a gift and also a vote. Per school committee policy 911, gifts of $5,000 or more must be formally accepted by the school committee. Dr. Lazat and Dr. Sawyer are acknowledging a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics grant of $25,000 from Charles River Laboratories that is being provided to the Shrewsbury Public Schools Foundation, who in turn is gifting these funds to the school district's Colonial Fund in order to fund STEM equipment, materials, and other educational experience at Oak Middle School and Shrewsbury High School. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Lazat for introductions.
Thank you so much for having us. And I'm very happy to be joined by two of my colleagues, as well as a community partner this evening. Sarah Parada, Director of Veterinary Services at Charles River Labs. Pam Poitras, Science Curriculum Coordinator, grades 5 through 8 at Oak Middle School, and Hallie Burak, Principal of Oak Middle School. And I am just overjoyed to have received this grant in the amount of $25,000 from Charles River Labs, as it will provide many opportunities for students and staff to engage with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Over the past 3 years plus, Sarah Parada and Charles River Labs have been extremely generous with their time and energy, as they have repeatedly invited students in from Shrewsbury High School, and I know other area high schools, colleges, and universities for career day open houses, job shadowing experiences, et cetera, mentoring. And this has been consistent, and Sarah is reaches out, communicates with me and my colleagues regularly to see how they Charles River Labs, can help us further our mission and vision as that relates to career exploration for students. So I am going to, at this time, turn it over to my colleagues and Sarah, who will talk a bit about a recent experience at Oak Middle School that happened on November 14th, where Charles River Labs and Discovery Ed teamed together on a visit to Oak Middle School.
So it started when Sarah reached out to us, Pam and I, over the summer, and said that she wanted to come visit Oak Middle School. We didn't quite start with 50 scientists, but that was the original offer. So we were really excited. Pam and I said yes. Having a partnership with Charles River Labs connects to our district strategic plan, and it also connects, which you'll hear about in a little bit, of the Oak School Improvement Plan. So our goal is really to expand on our career explorations. And so this definitely fit that niche. So this is just a great picture. 50 scientists and 5 dogs got on a bus. Sounds like the start of a joke.
It was.
They got the full Oak experience. They arrived right at arrival between 8:05. You were punctual that day. And we divided into 2 groups. And so the one group, which was what I was part of, was in the auditorium. So the entire 8th grade and then the entire 7th grade following that. But we had 4 different professionals in 4 very different roles join us. And some of the common messages that were shared with Oak students was follow your passion. And so each kind of professional ended up where they were because they kind of kept saying yes or kept being given opportunities to something that they were passionate about. Be adaptable. That was great. Jane and I were sitting in front of some students when the woman who shared to be adaptable was talking about cell phones. And that cell phones, now you have a whole computer in your cell phone, but it started as a floppy disk. And some 8th grade boys were like, what's a floppy disk? So that was very cute. They're like, did you have that? Another great message, knowing what you do not like is sometimes just as important as knowing what you do like. And I think that kind of carries not only in a career, but through lots of different aspects of life. And Sarah also shared her own personal story, which was about really figuring out systems that work for you. So systems of studying or systems of doing things, and kind of that's a huge part of middle school, is kind of figuring out how to study something, how to write a paper, how to fill in the blank. So it was really a great day with great messages.
She got to snuggle the dog. We had a great time. It grew. I think it was supposed to be just one classroom, and it grew to individual experiments for every kid. The staff was, everybody wanted to do it. When we asked, like, does anybody want to come? And I had 50 people who were like, I'll go. And I was like, oh, this is going to be big. I've never been so tired in my life. But we had a great time, and the kids asked the unbelievable, thoughtful, insightful questions. We got to bring 5 of our retired beagles with us. They were very well-mannered, and they ran around and met the kids in the amphitheater when they came, and got to say hi to all of them, which it seemed to open the kids up a bit, I think. Yeah, they got to ride the bus too, which was a big deal for them. And all of their parents were like, it's their first day of school, we have to take pictures. I was like, okay, we will. We had a great time. We learned so much, and we were overwhelmed by the amount of, it was more work than we thought to put it together, but now we know, and we've packaged it so that other sites who do this, so Charles River partnered with Discovery Education, which is part of the Discovery Channel, in their STEM job coalition, and they put on these, outreach projects as part of them. Charles River grouped with them, and we said we would do 6 videos, little STEM videos about different careers around Charles River globally. And so each of those, the sites that they were filmed out, got to pick a school. So I made one of the videos and picked Oak. Ours was the biggest one that we've had by far. I think the next largest was 100 kids. And we got to do experiments of 1,000. So it's all been packaged up, and it's ready to go everywhere, whoever wants to do it.
So as you can see, this here is our 7th grade students. They're participating in the hands-on component, where they are learning to simulate aseptic technique. And, we don't okay, but we have some work to do before we're in a lab where it really matters. Yeah, no surgery yet. Our 8th graders had the opportunity to experiment with polymers, where they got to learn about the controlled release of medication. So that was their to hands-on experiments, and they also had the opportunity to speak to the scientists that came to their classroom. So that was a nice experience along with our assembly. So we continue to develop and implement a phenomenon-based approach to teaching science at the middle level. Students are presented with real-world events to learn how to solve problems by asking questions and actively discovering the knowledge and skills needed to answer them. In the design lab this year, as you know, our students are engaged in their first year of implementing the Project Lead the Way curriculum, hoping to engage our middle-level students in engineering before they get to the high school. And we're hoping to use some of the grant money to be able to support these initiatives.
Great. Thank you so much. Colleagues, questions or comments, Ms. Fritz?
I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. We'll definitely take the money, but I think for me, the community partnership and the experiences that students are getting is even better, because that's at an early age learning, like, what is lab work like? I mean, hands-on. I have a husband who's in the bio field, and he still fondly talks about lab. When he was in the lab and starting out, that was his favorite thing to do. And for me, looking at students getting that experience so young, that's wonderful. So thank you to Charles River for bringing that to our students and kind of opening their perspective as to what's out there, what can be done, and I like it or I don't like it, but it's such an early age to start learning that. This is just fabulous. So thank you very much for the donation as well as the work with our community.
We love the kids.
Ms. Rutherford.
Also, thank you so much for the donation of $25,000. I have a 7th grader that was part of this, and I have to tell you that the day that this, she's not a big science person, but the door hadn't even closed in the car, and she was already telling me, like, this is what we did, and she failed to mention that there was puppies there during the day, which is strange for her, but the message got through in the day, and especially for, kids that maybe they don't see themselves as a scientist. They could see themselves that day, and I hope that it sparks something, that they can see that science isn't necessarily just physics and chemistry. There are so many different aspects of it, and I hope that there are more opportunities like this, because I think that this was fantastic. And again, having a child that went through that and the excitement that she had for it, it sounded like a great thing, and seeing this, I'm so glad that we're able to provide that. So thank you so much for coming and doing that.
I'm so glad.
Further questions, comments? I'd like to first thank Dr. Parada for not only the generosity of Charles River Labs, but also your partnership with our schools. This is just a great example of, being able to expand our programming beyond the dependencies of our appropriated budget, but also giving early exposure to our students on potential, career paths that they might be able to take. And I think, this district has been so hard at work around not only bringing these experiences into the classroom, but looking beyond the classroom through job shadowing. So, great job to Ms. Burak and Ms. Poitras and Dr. Lazat for continuing the momentum of these programs. And again, thank you so much to Charles River Labs for the generosity on the donation. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
Appreciate the generosity as well, and we'll make good use of the funds. In terms of I had the opportunity to join the day at Oak, and was able to observe one of the assemblies with one of the full grade levels. And first off, I was really proud of our students in that they were really attentive, putting several hundred 7th or 8th graders together in the same space can be a challenge, but the school sets high expectations for those occasions, and on top of that, the folks from Discovery Ed and the scientists from Charles River were really, they definitely captured their attention, and I think it was very authentic. I think with the panel talking about their experiences, what they had done with their lives, and how that had led them to this point in their career. But it wasn't only that; it was all those steps along the way. And I think the more students get that sense that it's a process and it's a journey, right? It's not just a straight line for most people. I think that it was really inspirational for a lot of students. They were definitely captivated by it, and that was really terrific to see. I didn't have the good fortune to see the experiments in the classrooms. That's not easy to do. I think, people who, when you do it, you recognize that the hard work it is to be teaching every day and providing these kinds of experiences for kids, and that it can be very demanding. But we love it when we have partners come in and do that work. It really can, again, who knows what students were inspired by that work, and maybe they were thinking about something along the lines of STEM, but now they're just more, their appetite now has been whet to potentially go into doing something in that field eventually, and they're going to have lots of opportunities from Oak, and you'll hear more about that in the school improvement plan, and then along the way through Shrewsbury High School to try things out and think about what direction they may want to go. We've been cited in the past for the strength of our STEM programming overall, and I think between this kind of work at Oak, the Innovation Pathways work that we're doing at the high school, and the Pathways work generally, we're really continuing to expand opportunities for kids. That's really exciting, and this funding will help us continue to do that. So it's terrific to have a community partner, right here in Shrewsbury, who is so committed to working and supporting public education. So thank you to Dr. Parada and her team. It was really, we're looking forward to more experiences in the future. And thank you to everybody at Oak and Dr. Lizotte for making it happen. Again, it takes organization on the part of Charles River in order to make this work in a school day at a school the size of Oak. Ms. Burek and her team, Ms. Poitras and the teachers, everybody had to pitch in and make it successful. So it was just a terrific day for kids, and we'll leverage these funds to make sure there's lots of other great experiences our students have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being open to it. I know it was a little overwhelming.
Thank you so much. So we do need to vote. So I do need a motion that the school committee vote to accept a gift of $25,000 from Shrewsbury Public Schools Foundation on behalf of Charles River Laboratories to be used for STEM equipment, materials, and/or educational experiences at Oak Middle School and Shrewsbury High School.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is also a time schedule appointment, is the middle school improvement plan presentation and vote. As we've done in previous meetings, each Massachusetts public school must have a school council consisting of faculty, parents, and a community member who advise the principal on the development of a school improvement plan. This year, each school council has used the district's 2023 to 2027 strategic plan and the district's 2024 to 2025 strategic goals and action steps to be determined which goals were most important to be emphasized across the grade 5 through 8 level, and to develop school-specific goals aligned with the district goal. The plans are enclosed in our packet, and we are going to review them now with our middle school principals. We're just bringing up the presentation now, so I'll give you a minute, and I think we're good to go. So we have Hallie Burek, who's the principal of Oak Middle School, and John Kelly, principal of Sherwood Middle School. Welcome.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
And thank you, Dr. Lizotte, for your help there. Dr. Sawyer, members of school committee, those of you watching at home, we'd like to thank you for having us here this evening to review our 2023-24 school improvement goals and share the progress we made, as well as the goals we've established for the 2024-25 school year. We'd like to start by thanking those staff and parents that were part of our school council, both last year and this year. We meet once a month as a school council individually, and they provide invaluable feedback and support to these documents, to put these documents together. We'd also like to thank our entire school communities. First, we'd like to start with our students for working hard each day to follow our core values and live up to our academic expectations. We'd also like to thank our students for who you are as people, your creativity, your enthusiasm for life, and most of all, your curiosity. You keep us young and are always willing to tell us what is working well and what needs improvement, whether it is food choices at lunch, time for recess, or the number of spirit days we have. We know we can count on our students for their honest feedback. Secondly, we'd like to thank our dedicated staff members who work hard each day to ensure that our students and families receive the best education possible. We are lucky to work with such a talented group of individuals who continue to think about ways to enhance their instruction and adapt their classroom environments to support the academic and social-emotional needs of our students. Being an educator is more difficult than it has ever been, and we are so fortunate to see the impact our teachers have on our students every day. Lastly, we'd like to thank the families in our community for your ongoing support of your child in our community. We both know as parents how difficult it is being a parent today, the sacrifices and energy it takes, and challenges our students face both in and outside of school. Thank you for supporting the hard work of our staff and students, especially on those days when it doesn't feel like your child is listening to you. For it is in fact on those days when they need you the most. Both of the plans that we're going to share with you tonight connect back to the commitments our district has made and will continue to make to our mission, our core values, and of course, the portrait of a graduate. Everything that we ask of our students, staff, and families connects back to this work. The focus of our work and what you will see reported out tonight is priority number 1, educational excellence, and priority 2, enhanced well-being of all. The first part of tonight's presentation will take a look at the work we completed during the 2023-24 school year, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Hallie, who will start to walk us through the work we have accomplished.
Thanks, John. So our first goal from last year has to do with educational excellence, and the focus of the goal was academic growth and achievement. So we started with the goal of trying to close the achievement gap, which was really trying to implement academic intervention systems focusing on literacy and math. So we were able to complete this goal, and it's obviously ongoing, so most of it had to do with kind of scheduling and allowing for the time and the staff to be able to work with students to close those gaps. So at Sherwood, students are receiving interventions during AFT, and at Oak, students are receiving reading and math interventions during their explorations block. The second part of the goal was to ensure all students who fall below benchmark, so in the literacy standards indicated by their STAR assessment, were again able to receive interventions. So again, this work is ongoing. You're going to see this work continued into what were our focus of this year, but we use STAR assessments to identify students who were struggling academically. STAR assessments were given 3 times per year, so at the beginning of the year, in January, and then in the spring. The student data was tracked using Excel spreadsheets, and we had data meetings throughout the school year to monitor student progress, and also worked with communicating this information with families.
So in addition to that, we set some high goals in terms of trying to reduce the number of students that needed support. So we set our goals at 10%. As you can see, we did not reach that at Sherwood. However, we have some good news to report with that. We did reduce our overall number of students receiving interventions in grade 5 by 4% and 2% in grade 6. I'm happy to report, though, that we had some significant reduction by the percentage of students that needed Tier 3 support, and that was 50% in both grades. We're going to be talking about in our plan for this year what we feel like contributed to the improvement of that, and a lot of that had to do with increased staffing, so we wanted to thank you for that, both in terms of the reading specialists and our tutor support. And as Hallie and I will talk about as we look into this year, we've become more adept as a team at being able to identify earlier what the student needs are and what the proper supports are for students.
Looks like we lost the feed there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Try to pop that back on.
Do you want me to pause, or?
Let's just give it a moment to.
I think this happened last year, too.
And if it doesn't come up, I can try to bring it up on mine. I'm going to try to connect from mine. Let's see if that.
Okay.
Go.
There we go.
Okay, looks like John's back up.
So at Oak, we also did not quite reach the 10% reduction rate. We did kind of create a new system of exploration, so which fit tier one, so what every student was getting, which was kind of an enrichment offering in a different subject if they were not taking band, chorus, or orchestra. The tier two, which was the intervention that students were receiving from their classroom teacher in either English language arts or in math. And then the tier three support, which last year was by Lisa Daly and Pam Poitras. So Lisa Daly is our curriculum coordinator, and Pam Poitras is a science curriculum coordinator. And they were doing tier three interventions with students for reading. So our numbers in September for tier two were 9%, and in June were 14%. So they actually increased. This is, as we were screening more students, more need was uncovered. Which is kind of a good thing. I believe Lisa Daly gave every single Oak student, which was almost 1,000 students, a spelling screener, corrected every single spelling screener, and identified one student who needed extra support with kind of phonics. So that was kind of the level of work. It was really kind of getting into the weeds to make sure every child got what they needed. Again, our tier three numbers increased from 2% to 4%. 15% of students who began tier two or tier three intervention did move to tier one. So our students did kind of graduate out back into tier one, but our numbers don't reflect kind of that 10% reduction. And then for grade 8, our tier two numbers did decrease. So September we were 11%, and June we were 7%, and our tier three numbers stayed consistent. But I think it was, again, kind of the more students we identified, the more support we were able to provide for students.
All right, our next goal was enhanced well-being of all. Aside from ensuring that our educational programs have the support they need, we prioritize, as you know, the well-being of all, and especially at the middle level. So our first goal had to do with increasing the percentage of students who responded favorably to the Panorama survey. We had hoped to see an increase of 5%. We did this in a number of ways, and these are steps that we not only completed, but will be ongoing this year as well, and we'll talk about that shortly. This is through day-to-day SEL curriculum that's taking place both at Sherwood and at Oak in different ways. At Sherwood, it's happening in morning meeting, and at Oak, it's happening in the advisory model. We're also continuing to use the Panorama survey and analyzing that data, and then we're able to break it down by demographic groups to determine what needs the students may have in those different subgroups. Again, when analyzing that data, we're able to then build in some curriculums with that. Our counselors are using those curriculums, our teachers are using those curriculums. It's one of the benefits of Panorama is it has lessons tailored to try to meet the needs of students. And so you can sort of cross-reference the lessons into the data. We're also developing school-based systems of support and making sure that, again, we're tracking that data and also making sure that we're following up with students one-on-one for any counseling supports they need. At Sherwood, the overall belonging results were down 2%. I wanted to provide a little bit of context to that and dig into the results a little bit. In some areas, we actually saw significant increases, and in other areas, we saw some decreases. Some things that we feel good about. We know that at this age, the topic of race and the topic of students feeling a sense of belonging is an important topic. We were actually happy to see that we did see an increase of plus 15% of students reporting that teachers are encouraging us to learn about others of different races. That's something that's definitely important to us, being a community of inclusion. We also saw an increase of plus 6 where students feel comfortable about sharing about race-related topics, which we know can be difficult at this age. We saw a slight increase of people at School Understand You. Where we saw the biggest decrease, and we're going to talk about some work that we're going to do this year to hopefully improve that, is negative 8% connected to adults, and then 4% respect that students show you.
So at Oak, we did get a 1% increase of overall belonging. So we did improve by 1%. And again, we were up 3% for people understand you as a person. We were down 1% about how connected you are to adults at your school. We were up 2% for respect that students show you, so peer-to-peer respect, that you matter to others, we were up 2%, and that you belong at school, we stayed even.
So next up, we're going to talk about our school-specific goals. When Hallie and I decided to create goals, we decided to focus on social, emotional, and behavioral well-being, knowing that this age is a very unique and rapid development, both in terms of students' social, emotional, academic changes that they face at the middle school level. So again, at Sherwood, the focus of our school-specific goals was to maximize family and community partnerships. We wanted to increase the offerings for families and communities to get involved in activities both during the school day and outside of the school day at Sherwood. We scheduled 2 what we call food truck events, one in the fall, one in the spring. These were both well-attended events, and we continue those this year and hope to continue these annually. It's really amazing, the opportunity just by having some food trucks and some music show up, how people come together and just enjoy socializing. It's great to see families and students there. This is usually a big turnout for us. In addition to monthly community meetings where we have people from the community visiting, we've had firefighters, we've had scientists, we've had members of the Unified team from Oak come over to try to do some community partnerships with Oak. In addition to that, last year we had our first family culture night, which took place in February, which was a tremendous success. We had students and families preparing food in our cafeteria, and we had students and families performing in our gymnasium. And again, we're looking forward to doing that again this year. And then one other additional event that we had last year was we required all teams to make sure that they held what we call the celebration of learning. Most of these took place in the spring. Many of them were project-based learning opportunities where parents came in and saw their students presenting to the class, and it was just a really nice way to have students and families together during the school day. Here are just a few pictures from those events, and as I said, we're already planning our culture night this year, which will take place at the end of January, and we partner with our PTO to make that a success.
At Oak, we were focused on fostering a welcoming, safe, and inclusive learning community for all. And so some of the different action steps that we took to ensure that we work towards creating belonging for all was we added a field trip in 7th grade to Boundless Adventures. So the entire 7th grade by team went, so over the course of 5 days. The 8th grade team has gone, or 8th grade teams have gone to TeamWorks for many years, and for a while 7th grade did not have a field trip. We incorporated more community meetings, which was feedback that we received from students in the Panorama survey. And we decided to celebrate the positive more, and in a lasting way, we gave out T-shirts. So hopefully you've seen some of those T-shirts around town, but they were Oak, Lead, Inspire in the back. We realized that we can't give out the same T-shirts to the 8th grade this year, so we had to order a different color this year, right? We had Anthony Valentine come in, who was highly recommended from a number of other middle schools, and he spent the entire day at Oak, so he did a 7th grade presentation and an 8th grade presentation. Then he visited a number of different classrooms, and his message was really building bridges with each other and not walls, and trying to find commonality. We also continue, we revised, and we are continuing to kind of revise the advisory lessons and systems based on kind of student feedback and student need, and allowing for more voice in the advisory lessons and on team, which is so important at this age. Yeah. All right, so that brings us to this year. Any questions on last year, or we'll wait till the end? Wait till the end. Okay. So that brings us to this year. So as you will see, kind of as we go through this year's school improvement plan, a lot of the initiatives that we started last year are going to continue into this year, as well as we're going to be starting some new things. So again, the first focus is on educational excellence. Again, we're focusing on academic growth and achievement for all students. So again, you're going to see our first goal is to continue to close the achievement gaps. So we're continuing to provide interventions and support to those students who qualify, who need the extra support. Our goal again this year is to reduce the number of students in interventions by 10%.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add, and again, I mentioned it earlier, just how grateful we are for your support. In 2022, we had no reading specialist and one part-time tutor. In 2023, we had a reading specialist and a full-time tutor. This year, we have a reading specialist and 2 full-time tutors. And what that allows us to do, it allows us to reduce the groups for intervention, so that not only are those students that are in those Tier 3 groups getting more support, but the students in Tier 2, our teachers have smaller groups, and that makes a huge impact for our teachers. As you know, our teachers are working hard during the day to deliver instruction, to help students with their SEL. This is an additional expectation we have for teachers to support students in their intervention, which is extremely important. But to be able to reduce those sizes for teachers is really helpful to them as well. They can be more effective and make sure that they're receiving delivering the supports that students need. I will also say that because of that increased support, it's going to allow our math teachers this year to provide some more targeted support to our students during AFT, which is something we haven't been able to do. At Oak, as you know, they have a teacher per subject. At Sherwood, we have a teacher at ELA Social Studies, so we don't have as many staff to offset the numbers. But because we've been able to utilize some of the resources that you've given us, again, math teachers can now specialize a little bit more on some targeted instruction for students during AFT, which will be great.
At Oak, we were also able to continue with the exploration schedule, and the increase in staffing has been really life-changing. We have a reading specialist and a very skilled reading tutor, and it's allowed us to offer Tier 3 reading throughout the day. So students who are really struggling with kind of the phonics, the single letter sounds, or the phonemic awareness, they're able to kind of get that throughout the day, and they're able to get it consistently. So the goal is they'll be able to make up more ground than they would if they just had it kind of every other day. It also allows us to service more students. We have 16 students in grade 8 Tier 3, which are receiving the support throughout the day, and we have 15 students in grade 7 Tier 3, so they're really getting what they need. Our preliminary numbers are showing that we're able to kind of decrease just the students who are in intervention, so that's promising.
So again, you're going to see a goal here that we had in place last year that we're continuing this year with our enhanced well-being. We were just talking about this. This is, again, we're going to continue to set that goal at 5%, that our students will respond more favorably to their sense of belonging. We're going to continue on with the program we have in place in terms of Panorama and how we're utilizing that survey data. In addition to that, though, some extra steps we're going to be taking this year. We are going to be implementing our PBIS school-wide framework. And this, as you know, is an evidence-based practice to help students not only succeed academically, but social-emotionally. We are having our staff, 3 staff meetings set aside for that, and then we also have some teams and leads doing some work, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. In addition to that, we're also implementing a Trails to Wellness Tier 2 program for our counselors, which are going to be helping our counselors work a little bit more closely with students and target anxiety and depression. We know that continues to be an area that students need support in. In addition to that, again, although, when you look at the numbers at Sherwood, I know that the number of belonging dropped 8 points, and we're certainly not happy about that. We want to continue to see that increase. We're still at the 80% nationally when you kind of compare that to the norm. But even with that, we've taken some steps this year to put some things in place that we hope will continue to advance that. Because when we dug into the survey data, what was coming out of that were 2 things. Number one, students having some difficulty struggling with this concept of respect, whether it's respecting adults, whether it's respecting themselves. So we've built in 2 assemblies. We had one in September with Robert Hackinson. He came to our school and did 2 assemblies, one for 5th grade, one for 6th grade. We're also partnering with Mark out of Bridgewater State They're nationally recognized as an anti-bullying and cyberbullying prevention program. They're coming to us actually next week, and they'll be talking with our 5th and 6th graders, again, 2 separate assemblies. Hallie and I also hosted a parent forum on technology misuse back in October to try to help our parents provide a little bit more support to them in terms of technology use and misuse, knowing that that's a growing problem for many of our students. And then we're also going to be implementing some lessons. We have student advisors and student voice groups at Sherwood, and so we're going to be tasking them with kind of digging into this a little bit more to make sure we're not missing anything as far as how we can better connect our students with adults.
So at Oak, our goal is also to increase belonging by 5%. We did notice that in September, we did have a higher or a positive result on the Panorama survey of overall belonging and how connected students feel with an adult. But we did notice that the sense of belonging, there was the peer-to-peer, the respect piece was down. So we have also started with Mark. We had a great presenter come out and again present to the entire 7th grade and then the entire 8th grade. The focus is how you treat people, and kind of the online world is not always the same as the in-person, face-to-face world, which I think is a message that 7th and 8th graders can never hear too many times. We co-hosted the Elizabeth Englander over Zoom. We're continuing to develop advisory lessons. I have to give a little bit of a shout out to some staff members that we have one coming up on Thursday if there's no snow day. But Andrew Shoro, who's the drama teacher, Jeremy Mullarella, who's our tech guru, Michelle Dillon, assistant principal, and Jenny Lancioni, adjustment counselor. We had student actors say actual direct quotes from our Panorama survey. So it's student words of this September that kids said. We're going to do, Michelle wrote a whole advisory lesson and presentation with Jenny, and we have them acting it out. And so it's really, I think it's more powerful. Oftentimes when adults keep talking, it's almost like Charlie Brown's teacher. And so if it's kids' actual words, I think that could be more powerful. So we're excited to do that tomorrow. Again, implementing PBIS with consistent expectations, and if students are unable to kind of meet those expectations, then we're reteaching prior to, right, you're not punishing, you're trying to, if kids don't know math, you're reteaching math, so same thing with these behavior expectations. We also are continuing to add new clubs and activities and kind of new offerings in the morning. So there's a group that goes and plays basketball, breakfast, some kids go and hang out in the media center and have board games. So again, we're trying to foster a sense of community, and Oak is very big, obviously, and so smaller communities or connecting kids with one another and different adults whenever possible. This is me again. All right, so this is an additional goal for this year, again, focusing on educational excellence of academic growth and achievement for all students. So the focus of the goal is to ensure high-quality teaching and learning. So we're in a little bit of a different space. So at Sherwood, the goal was for K through 6 to implement a literacy curriculum, and at Oak, the goal was to pilot to eventually implement a literacy curriculum.
Yeah, and I'll just speak to the EL curriculum. As you know, it's based on the science of reading. It increases and provides structured phonics, which empowers all students to read complex grade-level text and master literacy standards. So in addition to the support that you've given us with staffing, knowing that students, even before they come up to Sherwood, because this is K through 6, are receiving the same curriculum, and they're getting this work, the phonics and the literacy, is going to help us significantly. So you're adding in the interventions, you're adding in this curriculum. This is the first year that we're doing it, but we're already starting to see, students closing those gaps, and we're confident that we'll continue to see their reading scores increase as a result of that.
And at Oak, we field tested 2 potential curriculums in the fall. So EL was field tested on 2 different 7th grade teams and 2 different 8th grade teams, and Amplify was field tested on 1 8th grade team and 1 7th grade team. So about 600 kids were experiencing the different curriculums. We just kind of wrapped up and announced that we were going to move forward with the EL curriculum, which is really exciting. The highlight of kind of this field testing was meeting with the kids and getting their feedback, and they are so insightful, and they are so smart, and they're so eager to learn. And I think the most powerful piece was really the growth that each child was able to see and identify kind of what skill they were working on and how they were able to improve. And it was really fun to see them kind of chomping at the bit, wanting more. And they were really excited for the next step. So the groups that did field test the EL curriculum are going to continue to work with it for the rest of the year. So that's 4 teachers, so 2 different teams in each grade. And the kids were so excited about the next topic. So it was really the best part of my week. So the next part of the next goal is, again, to ensure high-quality teaching and learning, and this is to really develop our instructional leadership to identify and be able to provide feedback on key elements of effective and high-quality instruction. So this professional development is really focused kind of on that TNTP model, and that we're trying to leverage the high-quality instruction, high-quality teaching, students doing the thinking, kind of all what good teaching looks like, and how we're doing that is through instructional rounds and really calibrating our thinking. But we've both been through instructional rounds separately at our schools, and it's really been eye-opening, and we're excited to continue this work. And then also at the to continue to develop a district-wide data culture. So again, kind of focusing on student achievement and refining our systems that we're kind of keeping track of progress of students and making sure that we're kind of hitting benchmarks, and when students are not hitting benchmarks, kind of how can we help support them.
Yeah, and one thing just want to add again, in addition to the staffing, in addition to adding the EL curriculum, we know those are things that are going to help us improve our reading for our students. We've gotten better just now that it's year 2 at knowing what we need to do to help monitor students. So we've actually added 3 data analysis meetings in addition to the 3 data meetings we have. And again, this is through the support of our reading specialist, Sue Dorenzo. So she meets with our ELA teachers in between those data meetings to help us figure out, okay, what are the gaps? Where are we seeing students? What type of support do they need? So just having that additional person, that point person, to be able to do that work is key. Prior to this, it fell to Lisa Daly, who's working between 2 schools, and just, Lisa did a great job, but, just doesn't have the bandwidth to be able to do that. So really just, again, can't speak to having those, the tutors and the reading specialists in order to help advance our teachers with this work. All right, and so again, our second priority is enhanced well-being. So these are some additional goals that we've added this year. So again, we want to continue to strengthen our social emotional learning programs and supports. As you know, as a district, we are looking at the PBIS model and doing a lot of work as this district-wide. Again, we know that having school-wide systems in place, just like we're doing with looking at academics, that it has success in making sure students are reaching those benchmarks when it comes to social emotional learning and behavioral learning as well. So we're going to continue to implement our SEL curriculums, both through the morning meeting and advisory model at Sherwood and Oak. We're going to continue to utilize the panorama surveys. And then in addition to that, we're going to provide all professional level educators with opportunities to collaborate using the PBIS model and at a minimum of 3 staff meetings. So we've already started to introduce that to our staff, and we're going to talk more specifically about what that looks like in our school-specific goals. So at Sherwood, what we're going to do with that this year, so again, this connects back to PBIS. I know sometimes when you have big schools like Sherwood and Oak, you can see certain teams implementing this strategy, whether it's homework, whether it's academics, whether it's discipline. We really want to make sure we're implementing a school-wide approach to discipline, because we know that when we're doing that, when students have consistent expectations across the school day, they're going to be more successful. We had a discipline committee that started this work last year, and we've already implemented some of these practices throughout the school. We have zones in the building where students understand what their expected behaviors are in terms of the volume of their voice, in terms of how they should be interacting with each other. We've established a school-wide discipline system, so there's certain levels for that. Minor infractions, all the way up to more severe infractions. And we're kind of piloting out some of those things right now, and the goal with that being that by the end of the year, we'll have a systematic and consistent approach to that, so both students know what those expectations are, staff knows what those expectations are, and most importantly, our families know, right? As a parent, you want to understand what are the infractions for certain behaviors, and we want to be transparent with those things so that everyone in our community understands that. As you can see, this is a team-wide approach. Hallie and I are both involved in this along with our leadership teams. We have PBS lead and team leaders that are doing a majority of the work. We want to thank those people who have taken on those leadership roles. But we're also bringing this work back to our school councils, our FACs, our faculties, because we'll be doing that work at faculty meetings. So it is really a team approach.
So at Oak Middle School, we have two goals. The first is to advance career and technical education. So earlier in the night, you heard how we're starting to do that with Charles River Labs. We've also kind of walked back from the high school, the Lunch and Learn. So we were going to have our third Lunch and Learn this Friday. So we've had a police officer in. We've had 2 linemen from Selco, and we will have a financial advisor coming in on this Friday, which we're really excited. The kids have loved it. A lot of the people that come through the building remember it as the old high school, so that's kind of fun for them also. And then also kind of the excitement with the Leicester vocational program, who will be visiting Oak on Monday, and kind of sharing that experience. But we really got great feedback from, and we're continuing with our career day. There's some discussion maybe of expanding it to 7th and 8th grade this year or next year. But it really, the career day always gets rave reviews from the students and is pretty eye-opening. And then our second goal is goes back to PBIS, which the staff are really excited about. I think the students are excited about it too. Again, to have kind of consistent, clear expectations. So we are in the next phase that we are in at Oak is that having student input on the behavior matrix. So again, that's kind of, I think students' favorite part is that this is kind of what your teachers thought, what do you think? And they're gonna provide us with some feedback. And so we have a lesson coming up in the next few weeks with that. But again, explicitly teaching expectations, being clear with kind of school-wide discipline, and consistent across the board is always helpful.
Questions?
All right, thank you for the report, colleagues. Ms. Streeter, sir.
Thank you, John and Hallie, and also thank you to your school councils and the teachers and the staff and everybody that is doing this work every single day. This is truly a work in progress, and I appreciate the flexibility that both of you have and your staff have when it comes to what is needed, and sometimes you have to be able to pivot, and it seems like you've done a very good job with pivoting when you need to. There are some really big goals that you both have for your buildings with very many layers to be worked on this year, and I'm very sure that you will accomplish that. In terms of literacy, we know that students aren't where we want them to be, and this isn't just our town, this is across the state, this is across the country, but we know that with our district and the leadership that we have, that we will eventually get there, right? So when you look at the literacy, and I know you said, we didn't meet the 10%. That's okay. I mean, you do look and you say like 2%, 4%, all right, we were pretty far apart. But I don't really necessarily see that as a bad thing because like you said, I think we've become better at looking at the students on an individual basis and saying like where these kids maybe in years past, they could, get away with not having the tiered supports, but now you're taking the time to like sit down, not that you were not taking the time before, but we're better at identifying those students and getting them the supports that they need so that they can work through those tiers. So I think that's a major plus. So I think when we're looking at these, we didn't meet the 10%, but we're well on our way. And I think that those numbers in, a few years from now will look completely different because of the work that you're putting in right now. And I really appreciate the work that's going into that. The one thing that I actually want to ask Hallie is for explorations. I know that, and I should know this better because I have a seventh grader, but for explorations, for students who are not getting any kind of tiered support, math, literacy, whatever it is, what are those students doing during explorations when they're not getting a little extra help?
So those students are either in band, chorus, or orchestra, and so with this schedule change, students can take chorus and band or orchestra, so they can take more than one ensemble. And the students who are not doing that either are also getting an exploration and an enriching experience in either science or social studies, or being taught by science or social studies teachers. So something outside of the general curriculum, but it is an academic focus. So one group petitioned, they were working on persuasive writing, and they convinced us to be able to have lunch outside in the picnic tables in the courtyard on warm days. So they put together a whole presentation, they did the research, they did the legwork of speaking to all the people involved. They presented to Scott Yonker and Michelle Dillon and myself, and then they had to follow up and write so that would be like an example of one of the enriching experiences. There was another group out front launching rockets. So that would be, so they're getting other academic opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily get otherwise.
Ms. Boucher?
Thank you very much for the report. So much here and so much great work going on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I really like the information that you provided about the screening. I think it's super helpful. And I really appreciate what you provided about uncovering more need, because I think that's why we're doing it, right? So we can kind of target and get to students that may otherwise be slipping through the cracks or not getting what they need. So I think that's excellent. I also like the statistic that 15% of the kids moved within the tiers last year, which is great news. Like they're making significant progress, and we're being able to target them appropriately. I did have a question about the implementation now of having the reading specialist at Oak, and you did mention that they're working kind of with the full-time tutor on some of the kids that need Tier 3 support. Do they also have time in their day currently to address kids outside of Tier 3? Or is it just a focus on Tier 3 initially, and then you hope that they can maybe have additional time to address other students as well?
So Tier 3 at Oak is being addressed by the reading tutor and the reading specialist. Tier 2 is still being addressed by the classroom teacher. And so all students who are identified as needing extra support are getting it. Students in Tier 2 are able to get it during that explorations block. So it's period 1 for 8th grade or period 2 for 7th grade. And the Tier 3, the beauty of having kind of the 2 specialists is that it can happen throughout the day, where we're not trying to fit 15 students into kind of one class period or over 2 days. So it's class sizes of 2 kids, 3 kids. So they're really being able to, which is ideal for kind of the Tier 3 intervention. So they're really able to kind of get what they need in the small groups. And we do have kids moving out of Tier 3 into Tier 2. So there is some movement, just as trimester 1's ended. And we have 2 new students who moved in that were Tier 1, and then were identified to go into Tier 3. So the data systems and are kind of evolving and identifying kids and working. We also have a lot of kids that were just in Tier 2 and just kind of needed a few little tweaks, and now they're back in Tier 1, and so they'll go right back into kind of that's explorations.
I can have a follow-up. And on the EL curriculum for Oak, is that a school-wide curriculum, or is that just targeting kids that need extra assistance?
So that's Tier 1. So
Okay.
I think that's also going to help with our numbers, and I think that's the hope, that you're having a high-quality teaching text, right? So your Tier 1 is what everyone gets. So EL, the teachers who did the field testing enjoyed it, liked it, and are choosing to continue to do it throughout the year. The other teams that did not do the field test will have an option to pilot if they want in the spring. A few, Lisa Daly and Amy Clowder are working on that, and then everyone will be doing it the following year.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Fritz?
Thank you again. It is a lot of work, and it's a tough age. I think the middle school is a tough age. As a parent, I always felt that way. And for us as a school committee, and I think what Ms. Shreveport said, like, we're finding more students, that's what we want, because this is where we want to try to catch it before they get to the high school level. And, you know, things maybe have gone awry by that point. So I'm glad that we're catching more. I thank you for your comments about the staff helping. And that's something we were really adamant about, adding those staff supports, and hearing now that there's some time for teachers to help with in the math area. So this is, you know, it's having a ripple effect and helping more students. So I'm really happy to hear all of this information. My one question, because we're doing a ton of work. We're trying to help students in all areas, but again, with social, emotional, and belonging, and we're doing a lot with families. How are we making sure that families are getting the information that they need to kind of practice this at home? You know, when you mentioned respect, I think, you know, societal, we're seeing that in all areas. It's not just students, it's adults as well. We're seeing that in society. So how are we trying to make sure parents have that information, that they become partners with us? Because we're doing everything we can, but we also need them to partner with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so part of that is through the work we're doing by having these community events. I mean, part of it is you want your families, all of your families, to feel welcome, right? To feel like they're part of the community. We're big schools, so part of that is making people feel safe, make people feel supported. I think both of us do a lot in our weekly updates to be thoughtful and timely about certain times of year where we send messages to parents. I know we both do that. You know, when we have these assemblies, we make sure to let parents know that we're having them and what the message that's being shared, and please follow up with your child with this at home. I know Hallie does this, but I can say that, you know, I regularly sort of remind our parents with here are our core values, you know. Please make sure you're talking about this with your child at home. So I think just continuing to put it out there, like not just assume that parents are going to do it, but I think just being very thoughtful and very strategic about that. You know, I think it's difficult, right? Because all of us, I feel like the engagement across the board is lower probably than it's ever been. I think people are busier, they're overscheduled. So I think we're certainly always trying to think of new and creative ways to get our parents more involved. We'd love, you know, actually this year we're doing our PTO meetings on Zoom because we found that trying to do them in person, we didn't have as many people attending. And actually we have more people attending this year through that. So that's another way of trying to get more people involved, knowing that they're busy. Maybe they can attend it while they're driving their kid, hopefully in the parking lot, but you know, to the soccer game, right? They can join the PTO Zoom that way, but they can't make the commitment to be there at night.
Right.
So we're trying to think of, you know, creative ways to do that.
Right. I think also reaching out with a positive. I think we always reach out kind of when things are not going so well, but really making an effort to reach out with the positive and promote the positive more in school. I think it's it's easier for parents to engage when there's kind of good things, right? And it's harder when things are kind of not going so well. But yeah, and I think continuing to offer kind of counseling and different supports and how can we help, and so I would agree that kind of we work hard to get the engagement that we do, but we're always,
Thank you, and thank you, because I think it's kind of above and beyond. You have very busy roles as principals, and this is information that you're really trying to do more of. Because I do think it's above and beyond really kind of your job description some days to get it out there, but this is the world that we live in now, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I really appreciate the time and effort that went into a very comprehensive plan here. I also like how data-driven it is. You know, just kind of showing the results from, you know, the previous year and how we're using data to drive the improvement into this year. So great job on that. And I was also struck too about the additions, the comments that you made about the additional resources, the impact that they're having, about the reading specialists, and the 2 full-time tutors, math teachers, to be able to provide more targeted support. Those data meetings, I love that. I mean, my day-to-day, my real-world job is just immersed in data, right? So I think it really helps kind of level set what needs to be done, and we haven't had those opportunities, you know. And then, and I just think we're fortunate to be in that position, right? Because in the 10 years that I know I've been here, and certainly Ms. Fritz has been here even longer than that, It's not always been that way, right? Now we have more financial predictability as a result of the May 2021 override, and we're thankful to the residents for allowing us to make these key additions. You know, it's very comforting to hear that, so thank you for sharing that as well. So, Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
I want to add my thanks to Mr. Kelly and Ms. Burak for the presentation, and to them and their school councils for creating these plans, and for the entire faculty and staff at our middle school level at Sherwood and Oak for the really hard work that they're doing to make a difference for our students every day. There is an awful lot going on, and it's really important work. I really appreciate how it's under the umbrella of the district's areas of focus and commitments and strategic priorities. In terms of, I'm reminded of the presentation Ms. Clouder did at your last meeting in talking about sort of where different cohorts of students were through COVID. And certainly we know that what kids are coming with to the middle grades, which has always been a challenging time developmentally for most students in some way or another. You know, there are kids who are behind where they should be. Sometimes it's just lagging academic skills. Sometimes they may have been lagging social skills. There's just a variety of things that are happening, and I think, as I commented earlier about being at Oak and seeing how well the kids were behaved in this big assembly, I know the same when I've seen assemblies at Sherwood. And you know, we regularly get comments from people who visit our schools of the feel, the atmosphere, the climate, the positive culture that's there. That doesn't happen by accident. That's the staff, all the roles, you know, pitching in and making sure we have that kind of environment. They're striving to do even better with that, obviously, and making kids feel they really belong and feel part of a community. And that can be, you know, that's a hard age where sometimes kids don't feel that they fit in, and they're really, you know, seeking their identity in different ways. And you know, there's a lot of expertise among the staff and faculty at both of these middle schools to try to make that as positive experience as possible. And when kids need support, making sure they're getting that support, whether that's socially, emotionally, behaviorally, academically. And I'm very confident that we're getting momentum. I really think that the collective effort over time, and I happened to just come across something the other day when I was reading an article about something that talked about, you know, one of the major factors in school success and ultimately in student success in classrooms is essentially the collective staff sense of efficacy about belief in kids and having high standards, but finding ways to help them get there in an age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate way. And I'm confident that we're really building that right now in a way that is very responsive to data and responsive in ways that are very diagnostic and prescriptive. So, you know, I really do appreciate that work. I appreciate the efforts to engage our families. And you know, I'm very excited about how things are going to evolve in the coming months and years with our middle school program. So thank you for all the hard work, much appreciated, and I certainly recommend that the committee vote to accept both of these school improvement plans.
Great, thank you so much. So with that, colleagues, we do need to vote. So I do need a motion that the school committee vote to approve the school improvement plans for Sherwood Middle School and Oak Middle School.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and all those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thanks so much. All right, the next item on our agenda, as I get to it, is under policy. It is the preferred vocational technical school policy, a second reading and vote. A first reading of the draft of policy 623, preferred vocational technical school, was held at the school committee meeting on November 20th, and the draft was posted afterward for public viewing and comment. The policy is required by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and outlines the specifics of what this designation means for students who are applying for admission to a vocational technical high school. Ms. Boucher and Ms. Sharifpour are members of the policy subcommittee, and this is the second reading of the policy. So who's...
Yes, we haven't received any comments on
Okay.
the policy, so I think we're ready to vote on it tonight.
Great, yeah, and I didn't see any comments. Or any feedback, Dr. Sawyer?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I mentioned last time, legal counsel has reviewed the policy and was fine with the language as it stands. And I do support the recommendation. Just as an aside, in terms of the students who, we had our deadline for students who had the opportunity, current ninth graders, to transfer to Leicester High School to take advantage of the Chapter 74 programming there, starting with the second semester in January. And as of this time, there are 5 students who applied for that transfer. There were about 17 who showed some level of interest in some of the informational pieces that we did. And then we will, there might be a couple applications that were mailed, may have been postmarked by the deadline, so that might change slightly, but those are the number that look like they'll be taking advantage of that. We'll work through to make that happen successfully, and as I know Ms. Burek mentioned earlier, we're already in the process. Dr. Lazat is coordinating with the folks at Oak and the high school the ability for our 8th grade students to get information about all the programming that would be available potentially as 9th graders, whether that's the Leicester program or whether that's the Innovation Pathways programming at the high school. And we'll make sure that students and their families are well informed, as well as informed about this particular policy, should you choose to adopt it tonight. And I do recommend that you vote to approve it.
Sure. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Definitely an exciting opportunity we're able to provide our students. I know we've been talking about this for the last couple of years. I'd like to thank Leicester High School certainly for the opportunity to provide these great programs to Shrewsbury students, and it's good to hear that we've had some interest, so that's great. So with that, we need to vote on this, so I need a motion that the school committee vote to approve policy 623, preferred vocational technical school, as presented.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thanks so much. All right. The next item on our agenda is under Finance and Operations. It's an annual enrollment projections for future school years report. Mr. Chris Girardi is here with us to provide information regarding enrollment projections for the district's student population in future years. The report includes information on historical and projected enrollment from the New England School Development Council, the Shrewsbury Town Manager's Office, and the McKibben Report, which is a one-time report conducted in March of 2022 as part of the Pre-K to 12 Capital Investment and Assessment Study. Mr. Girardi, I'll hand over to you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
This is kind of part of the annual preparation for the FY26 or fiscal year 26 budget that we're starting to work on. There's 3 key ideas around doing enrollment projections. So just briefly, they provide us a trusted source of information for short and long-term planning. They give us short-term projections, provide data for annual class size and staffing decisions. So that's the work that we do for the FY26 budget work. And then they give us long-term projections that provide us data for capital planning decisions, more 5, 10, 15-year out information that we can use to see what we might need to do moving forward with our capital planning. And
Because we just lost the feed there, I think.
thank you. And as Mr. Wensky was sharing, there's really 3 sources that we rely upon for our projections. One is the one-time report done by McKibben in 2022 that gave us a 10-year projection. Again, it was a pretty thorough projection. And then the 2 that we use annually, the New England School Development Council, we're a member of that group. And in October, we submit our data to the Department of Education, and then we use that enrollment data. We send it to NESDEC, and they give us a report on enrollment projections, and the same with the Town Manager's Office. We give them our enrollment projection or our enrollment numbers as of October 1st, and they provide us an enrollment projection as well. Okay, so this slide, what it shows is how accurate the 2 projections, NESDEC and Town Manager's Office, how accurate they are and how reliable they are, that we can use them to really help us understand what our planning is for the next fiscal year. So the town manager projection for FY25 that was done a year ago, the town manager's projection is in blue. NESDEC's projection was in red, and those were the two that we used to prepare our sections for our current school year. So that green is the actual numbers that we have in seats as of October 1st. I think I lost this again. All right. So the green is the actuals as of October 1st, and what we do is we just look to see how accurate they are. And as you can see at the bottom here, they're pretty accurate. The town manager's accuracy was 99.79%. NESDEC was just over, they were slightly over projection. So that really tells us, they are trusted sources of information, of enrollment information that we can use to plan for our next fiscal year. So those are really more of our short-term that's our short-term planning. Sorry. Troubles here with, there we go. And to look at those by grade span, what we see is that our 9 through 12 and our 5 through 8 projections tend to be really accurate. In the past few years, what we find is that the information that we provide them, some of the trends that they follow, give us some very strong data as to what we can predict for the next year. Elementary is also very strong, but that tends to have a little bit more variance. And as I get to a few more slides, a lot of that has to do with kindergarten, first grade, particularly, but we do see a lot of transient folks moving in and out, and people settling with smaller children in town in our earlier levels. So the second piece here is our planning for next fiscal year. My apologies on the slideshow that I sent you. It says planning for 24-25 class size. It should say planning for 25-26, which is next school year. I did make that adjustment on the slide here. So the exercise that we do here is in green, what we do is we move forward our grades ahead one grade level. So that grade 1 at 379, that's our current kindergarten class. The 383 in grade 2, that's our current first grade class. And so forth through grade 12. And just for the exercise, what we do in kindergarten is we maintain the same number that we have this year. And then we compare them to town manager's projection for this year and NESDEC's projection for this year. And it just shows the difference in numbers between what our current students in seats are versus what the projections are for town manager and NESDEC. And it gives us some information, and it tells us kind of the trends that they like to follow based on their projections. The two that are highlighted here, apologies. So the two that are highlighted here again are K and grade 1. I'll talk about K in just a moment. Grade 1 is something that we're taking a look at because in the past couple of years, they've been slightly off between town managers and NESDECs, and I think we're starting to attribute it to us having full-day kindergarten over the past couple of years and not having a whole lot of new seats coming into grade 1 that we used to have when many families were choosing other kindergarten options and then would enroll their children into grade 1, which the projections would have kind of a slightly higher percentage of new students coming in, and we're not seeing as much recently. So we're going to keep an eye on that one. That's something fairly new that we'll keep an eye on and use when we do make our projections and how many sections we have in grade 1 for next school year. So in speaking of income in kindergarten, the birth and cohort survival scenarios, which it shows the number of births in a given year and how many students enter into K 5 years later from that year that they were born. And it gives us a ratio of birth to K. And so we have some historical data that shows that we can take a look at the amount of births, and we can have a ratio that tells us how many students we predict will be entering kindergarten for that school year. We have a bit of an anomaly this year. In 2020, we had the lowest births in Shrewsbury for any recent history. We know that's the COVID year. We're not sure kind of what the background is there, but we'll just take the numbers and go with it. Okay, so we do have some projections that have been made by NESDEC and by Town Manager's Office, and they're lower than what we've seen in some recent years for our kindergarten numbers. So we're keeping an eye on that. Something that we're planning on doing is we're going to start to open our kindergarten registrations a bit earlier, see if we can really start to understand who that group of kindergarten families are that will be enrolling. But that's something that as we start to develop our class section model, we'll be keeping a close eye on. This is something that's fairly new. It looks like it's a one-year blip, a slight drop again in 2022. But our gut starts to tell us that we think we'll have a few more students than what the births to ratio will be for the incoming class. I think I'm sitting too close to something. Okay. Something else that's, something that we've been very reliant upon, or we've known, was the vocational enrollment drop that we had been experiencing since 2021, 2022, when Assabet changed its admission policy. We've been able to really anticipate the drop in enrollment there and those students remaining in Shrewsbury for high school. Something that again is new to us is the potential seats that are open at Leicester High School for their vocational program. And this was shared at the last school committee meeting around what the potential growth could be for students attending a vocational program and those seats not being filled at Shrewsbury High School. So again, this is a high-end estimate of how many students, and by 28, 29, we could be looking at just over 100 students potentially attending that program. So that's something that, as we're doing our enrollment projections, it's new, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll be sharing this information with the Town Manager's Office and with NESDEC as they're doing their projections. And then the third piece is the long-term planning. And as accurate as the 1 year projections are, we start to look at the long-term planning. They tend to not be as accurate, but they give us some really nice trends to keep an eye on. And some of the trends that we're seeing is enrollment, through Town Manager's Office, NESDEC, and McKibben. They show that there's a slight dip over the next 10 years. It's really not anything of significance, especially compared to some communities around us who are considering closing schools over the next few years because their enrollment's dropping. So what we're seeing is fairly stable enrollment, and we've done some projections at different levels, and Shrewsbury High School is maintaining enrollment pretty stably, and we'll see what the attendance to Leicester will be, but we're not anticipating much of a difference in class size or any real significant change at Shrewsbury High School that will address the overcapacity that they have there currently. But again, these long-term planning, what they help us do is take a look at our capital planning and to be thinking about what we need to be doing to make sure that our facilities and our programming is the right fit for our population. Okay, so to summarize, short-term enrollment projections, they offer data to make accurate budget-related decisions around class size and staffing. And that's something that we'll be working on over the next month or so to come to school committee to be able to present a budget that has what we believe to be really solid class size projections for next school year and what impact that may have on staffing and class size. We have to monitor the low birth numbers in 2020 primarily, also 2022, and population trends at the state and national levels to understand, potential downstream impacts on future enrollments. Take into account real-time adjustments that are not captured in mathematical enrollment projections. Our emergency shelter population, St. John's offering 7th and 8th grade. We've been keeping an eye on that and been able to share that information with NESDEC and Town Manager's Office to understand what those trends are and the evolution of our vocational programs, loss of seats at Assabet and potential seats at Leicester. And then the long-term enrollment projections provide data for capital planning that projects enrollment trends over time to keep pace with physical space needs and evolving mandates for educating students. And with that, I think we lost our screen again, which is kind of the theme of the night. But for folks out there, this slide says, do you have any questions?
Thank you so much for the report. Appreciate it. Colleagues, questions, comments? No. Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Sawyer. Any further comments?
Appreciate the work that Mr. Girardi's done, and in conjunction with Mr. Stone in the Town's Manager's Office and our partner at NESDEC. Still relying on the McKibben report done by a professional demographer as part of that space study. That's giving us good data for several years, and to be able to triangulate all three of those really is helpful as we project both short-term budget needs and longer-term trends. So something we'll definitely continue to pay attention to, and it's a process we've used over time successfully to make sure we're being as cost-effective as we can be with our staffing models. So thank you, and appreciate the data.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is under new business. It's an update on the Assabet Valley Collaborative. The state law governing educational collaboratives requires 4 updates each year to member school districts. This is the first update for this school year. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you. In your packet, there's a report that Dr. Kathy Cummins, the director of the Assabet Collaborative, provided to member school districts or a variety of links. This will be posted with all the school committee materials, of course, if the people are interested. There's a variety of pieces that are included, the goals for the collaborative that we're working through, a variety of activities that's been happening with their different special education programs, whether those are for those who are medically fragile students. They have a program for students transitioning between 18 and 22. That's programming we still have some students in completing that program. Our students now, of course, are attending the RISE program that we've brought in-house. But the Evolution program there is a very high-quality program that we've been pleased to have students in over time. And then their Orchard Street Academy, which serves students who are having significant social, emotional, behavioral kinds of concerns or issues. I'm pleased with the information we get as board members about the various things that are happening educationally there. We are continuing to see, and we do have our board meeting this coming Friday. One of the real benefits of being part of the collaborative is the purchasing power of all these districts together, whether that's for something as simple as a bread contract for our cafeterias or school supplies and various things. But most importantly, the biggest ticket item is for out-of-district special education transportation, and there's a contract with for that service. The vendor the new contract was put out, it was time for a new bid. The same vendor that we've worked with over time, Vanpool, got the bid. There have definitely been some challenges with there was a change in methodology for the billing. The billing has not been timely from the vendor, and it's been, unfortunately, too many errors. And so the collaborative is working very hard with that vendor to make sure that we're getting accurate information, because obviously we're not going to pay the bill to the collaborative. They're not even invoicing us until they feel that they have a reasonable invoice that's accurate. And so they're essentially, doing that work on behalf of the member districts. And so I appreciate the time and effort that they're putting into that. They're keeping the board apprised of what's been happening, and the board is being very clear that we need to see improved performance when it comes to that element. That's probably the biggest single issue right now that we're working through as far as the collaborative organization. But there's a variety of information in your packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the school committee may have.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Thank you for the report. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes from the school committee meeting held on November 20th has been enclosed. Colleagues, any revisions or edits? There being none, they'll be accepted as written. We do need to go into executive session this evening. Therefore, I need a motion to enter into executive session, A, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 22F and G, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association, Units A and/or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association, and or the Cafeteria Workers Association. And C, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, non-union clerical and support staff and/or administrators. Purpose 2, and D, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, federal and Massachusetts student record laws. Purpose 7, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote is required. Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Sharifapur?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.